Okay, guys, I think we will go ahead and get started. I'm sure we'll have a few more folks joining us, but I want to take a moment and just welcome you all. Thank you for being here tonight. I know it's already a long day, so thank you for taking some time to spend with us. Um, this is, well, it's now the second in what we're hoping is a series of webinars around distance learning and supporting our students in Cambrian. My name is Matt Hill. I'm the Director of Educational Technology in Cambrian. Tonight we are, just a little side note here, we are recording this webinar, and so we will be posting this on YouTube along with the slides. So if you registered, we'll in the next few days be sending you a pointer to both the video and the slides for this webinar, because I know there are some links and things that you may want access to. Our speaker tonight is Debbie Klima. Mrs. Klima, she is a teacher in Cambrian, and we're very, very thankful to have her participating, and she's the driving force behind developing this presentation. She has taught first grade and second grade, is currently a middle school teacher, and she'll go through a little bit more of that with you when she comes on. But she is in the trenches, and she has experienced the full spectrum of ages, so is an excellent resource in terms of helping you and helping us support our learners. So we are, as I said, we are hoping to do more of these, in the near future. Again, just short little webinars to support our parents, our families, and our students. So at the end of this webinar, we are going to be asking you to, in the Q&A section, put any ideas that you have in terms of future topics that you might find useful. So kind of cogitate on that a little bit while you're listening, and have your ideas ready to post. And then last but not least, before I hand it over to Debbie, our Q&A is live, so you are welcome to post questions as we go. If it's a question that's related to what Debbie's talking about in the moment, we'll go ahead and take a moment and address it. If it's not, I may either answer it separately, or we'll go ahead and answer it as a group at the end of the presentation. But do ask questions. We want this to be interactive. Okay, with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Debbie Klima. Debbie, take it away.
All right, welcome everyone. As Matt said, thank you for coming. And I do want to thank Matt and Lynn Nguyen and the Ed Services team for hosting this. I'm hopeful that it will be useful for all the parents and supporting adults that are helping students through this time. So as Matt said, right now I am an electives teacher at Ida Price Middle School. So I have 7th and 8th graders this year. Usually I'm at the other end of the spectrum teaching 1st and 2nd graders. But I'm kind of appreciate having the experience on both ends of it. I'm also a parent, so I'm in there with you. I have an 8th grader at Price and a junior at Branham. So this is kind of our agenda for today. We're going to look at organizational strategies, some how to manage apps and logins, because we know our students have a lot of those right now. How to support student self-advocacy, and then also the value of productive struggle. And then as Matt said, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A and we will get those answered. Before I jump into the content, I do want to say thank you to all the parents and acknowledge you that you guys are the ones that are directly supporting your student at home. You're the tech support, you're the counselor, you're helping your students stay online and get their work done. So we do, as teachers, I can directly say we all really appreciate how much you're able to help your student out. So thank you to all of you. I was joking with Matt earlier that you're usually partners in education. You've moved up to managing partner level with all of the distance learning. So these are kind of our 5 tips and tricks for student organization. These are some of the things that we commonly see that can cause some issues for students. And number 1 is encourage your student to keep their school supplies in one place. I know that seems kind of like a common sense thing, but sometimes students at these ages don't have that common sense all the time. So really encourage them to have not only any notebooks or textbooks if they're an older student, or their workbooks, as well as, their pencils, their scissors, all those things that they need. If they haven't already created like a specific spot or even a box for them, really encourage that, because it helps the students stay focused during class time. Because what I often see happening when I ask students to go get something, if they don't have it, they're over here digging for it, or they're walking away because they have to go find it, and then they're missing that valuable instruction time. So really encourage them to have it in one place and close to where they're going to be on their Zoom class meeting. The second one is if there's a TV in that room, if there's any way for that TV not to be on, it's really helpful if it's not on, because even if it's someone else, a parent, a sibling watching something that they don't care about, it's just common, human interest. We're going to start looking at it and then we lose our focus. The other one is phones. Encourage your student not to have the phone with them during class. I see a lot of like this down here and laughing at things that weren't funny when I said it. So really encourage that if they have to have their phone near them because you're at work and you need to be able to get a hold of them, just really encourage them to have that face down and off to the side during the instructional part of their day. And then the other one is having other tabs open. Especially if they're using a district Chromebook, it's actually best from a technology end to not have other things open. But what ends up happening is they put Zoom behind and put something else in front of it. And then again, they're missing that direct interaction time. The third one is set up a routine. When they're at school in the classroom, they absolutely have a routine. They know, when recess is, when lunch is, when they're reading, when they're doing science, they always know. And they probably have a routine, especially for elementary school students, set up of when they're going to do everything. So set up that same routine when they're at home for when are they going to do their homework. Wednesday, that asynchronous day, is a tough day. Sometimes students see it as, woohoo, no school today, but it's still a work day. So I really encourage you to have your child have them help you with it, but have the two of you, or however many of you want to be involved, set up a routine for when they're going to get things done. It absolutely helps them because they can also know when I finish this, then I get to do something that I want to do. And the fourth one is keep track of assignment due dates. This is really important, particularly for middle school. I'm hearing from a lot of students that they're having a hard time keeping track of when everything is due because it's all online. So help your student, write it down on their agenda. If they go to Price, they got an agenda. If they're in elementary school, they can write it on a calendar just to keep track so that they're not falling behind. And the fifth one is to use the technology tools that they have. In Seesaw for our younger elementary school students, right, it will show them all of their assignments. They can make sure that they're getting them done. Google Classroom will show them when something is due, if something is missing, if it's been returned because it was scored. And Google Calendar is a great one because not only do they have their Zoom meetings, but if they know that they have a math test on Friday, absolutely, especially for older elementary and middle school students, encourage them to put that on that calendar. Make a reminder to help them remember. Those tools are ready for them and they can absolutely take advantage of them.
Hey Debbie, can
Yes.
I throw in one? You alluded to it, but I just really want to emphasize it. In all of these things, keeping school supplies in one place, removing technology, setting up a routine, the more you can bring your child into that decision-making process and let them be part of, okay, we know we need to be organized with our school supplies. How do you want to do it? And getting their input and or giving them a choice in it, the more buy-in you'll have at the end of the day versus as a parent, it's sometimes much easier to say, this is how we're going to store everything. And you tend to get less buy-in with that versus if they are actually involved in that decision-making process, even if it's just giving them, here are 3 ways we can do it. You pick which way you want to do it. So I think that was an excellent tip.
Definitely. Yeah. The more you can involve them, even in the routine, when do you want to, is a good time for you to get your math done? What about this? Absolutely make it a conversation because then, like Matt said, they're going to buy into it and they're going to be more willing to follow it. So if you were on our previous webinar, you've already heard this part, but if not, I really wanted to emphasize the use of Clever. Clever is a new tool that we're using this year, and it's kind of a single login portal to all of the applications and links that we use in the Cambrian School District, and it's personalized by the student. And what it means is that they can log in, and instead of having to remember the link to every single application or website that they need to use, they go to Clever, they log in, and it's all right there for them. It's really handy, and especially for younger students who are struggling with having to type in their username and password. I know when I was, in the classroom with them, it still took, many weeks of practice for students to, put all that information in because it's still new to them. So using Clever, highly recommend it. Your teacher should have sent you a QR code to log in or login information. If you don't remember it or don't have it, please reach out to them and they can send it to you. And then again, you can keep that central. Ask your student where would be a good place to put this so you don't forget. Maybe it's taped to their folder or put on their wall, whatever is going to work for them so that they have it. And so in Clever, some of the applications, as soon as you log in, it will automatically log you into them. Other ones aren't set up that way. So it will, you'll still have to log in when you get to the link, but at least they have the link right there and they're not having to search for it on Seesaw or Google Classroom. It's right there for them. So the other piece to this is students should know what apps they use in class. At this point in the year, it should not be a question of, do I use Imagine Learning? I don't know. They should know. So make sure you're asking them so that if the teacher is talking about something, they should know what that application is. For elementary school students, they're typically over here. So it's Google Classroom for upper elementary school students. So some third grades are using Google Classroom, some are using Seesaw. So you're going to have Seesaw or Google Classroom as your main spot for assignments. All students have a school Gmail account. That's their login, and they have access to Google Drive as well as other Google solutions. Imagine Math and Imagine Learning, they may be asked to go on these, or they've probably been asked to go on these. And then Illuminate Education is kind of where they go for some of their assessments. Cami is where they can take a PDF and electronically enter in a text box to respond to an electronic PDF, so you're not having to print it out. And then Benchmark, which is our English language program for the elementary schools. And so that's, and then one that's not on here, but I don't think there's a link for it, is Steindorf has readers and writers workshop, so they wouldn't have the Benchmark one. So your child may not have all of these apps, or they might even have other things as well that their teacher is using, such as Flipgrid, for example, or Nearpod. That's okay. These are just kind of the primary ones. But again, your child should know. Middle school students, here's what they're having. They're also going to have the same Google Classroom, Google Drive, and Gmail. They'll have their PowerSchool login, and then TCI for social studies, Illuminate for assessments, and then they have Cami as well, and then their English language arts and math applications as well. So I just wanted to give you guys an idea of what your student is probably using. But again, I encourage you to ask them, well, what are the apps that you're using? What do you use Imagine Learning for? What are you doing with Cami? And again, not every student will use all of these, but they should know what they're using. And all of these are available through Clever. So this is like your super tip of the day. If you're not using Clever, I definitely encourage you to have your student get on there and use it. It makes it much easier. So now I want to talk about how can students self-advocate. Self-advocate is, again, advocating for themselves. Particularly for younger students, it's typical that they want mom and dad to do it. And for some things that might be appropriate. However, there is still responsibility that even younger elementary school students can take upon themselves. So we encourage your student to ask a clarifying question. It's really hard if a student just says, I don't know what to do. I don't know, because we can't help them specifically, but if they were able to say, I don't understand what to put in my conclusion, that's a very specific question. And then the teacher can directly give them the help that they need. So encourage your student, even if they in the beginning need to talk it through with you to figure out exactly where they're having a problem, then they can ask that question and be specific. Encourage them not to panic. Take a deep breath. Our previous webinar was about technology issues, and I know sometimes if suddenly we're not on Zoom anymore, we're having trouble logging in or turning something in, we as teachers totally get it. We've had our own technology issues. So take a deep breath and then work their way through it. That way they can calmly move forward with what they need to do. And then don't anticipate, even if you can tell your child is having an issue, let them tell you what's wrong and what they know about it. So for example, if they're doing a math page and they're clearly having trouble, let your student tell you what they know about it and where they're having a problem, because then that way they're doing some of that thinking, and then you can help them specifically with their area of struggle. Also, encourage them to ask a friend before the teacher. This can be a little difficult for younger students. However, in a breakout room, for example, if they forgot what they were supposed to do or they're not sure what color they were supposed to use, ask a friend. In their classroom, usually the rule is ask 3 before me, because the teacher, right, is teaching everyone. So while at times we will do one-on-one help with students, if we're in the middle of something, we might not be able to stop right then and help that student. However, there might be a friend that could help them as well. And this is particularly true for older students. Teach them how to email their teacher with questions. For upper elementary and middle school, they should be able to email the teacher and ask a question, or if they're having a problem with something. I know for some students at Price, we've been practicing how to write an email to a teacher. If your student hasn't had that practice, right, just teach them that it shouldn't just be, Mrs. Klima, I need this, right? It should be Mrs. Klima, I'm having trouble with this assignment, and whatever the issue is. So teach them how to properly send an email. It's a good life skill to have. So you're kind of checking off 2 boxes at once. And the next thing is, there's a time, and I know as a parent, this is really hard, and I've totally failed at this at times. So there's a time to be hands-on, and there's a time to be hands-off with them. So students learn best when they experience what's called productive struggle. I know many of you have probably heard, helicopter parents used to be the big buzzword term that, parents that were all right there with their kid. The newest thing has been what's called snowplow parents, where they're constantly trying to make the path in front of their child easy without any issues. And what happens is the student doesn't learn how to problem solve. So productive struggle is what we call effortful learning that's going to develop that problem solving skill. When teachers are giving students assignments, in general, never say 100%, in general, it's something that they should be able to do, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they should do it like this. Some might, or you might have times when they totally get it. But productive struggle is, again, when they're working through something and they're moving towards that answer by problem solving it. But when we look at when to help, sometimes you need to step in and help as a parent. So if your child has tried something multiple times and they are not making any progress, they're not moving forward, they're not able to problem solve in an effective way, then that is your time to come in and kind of guide them through that process. If your child's becoming emotional, right? If it's becoming something where they're crying or they're angry, obviously that is your time to have them step back, calm down from it, and then help them move forward with it. And hopefully you may be able to help them move forward a little bit, and then they can get back to that productive struggle. But we certainly don't want students at home crying or they can't get anything done because they're struggling, but it's not productive struggle. Also, if your child is having difficulty, even if it's been clarified, if they ask a question about, I don't know what to put in the conclusion, and they still aren't getting there, that's when you can step in and kind of help guide them through that process. And the difference is we're guiding through the process. We're not just giving them the answer right away. So what does it look like when they should struggle? And again, I'm a parent and it's hard to see your child struggle, but if they're trying something for the very first time, let them try it out. They may be doing it in a way that does not make sense to you or is not the way you would do it. That's okay. Let them try it out and let them work their way through it. If they haven't asked for specific help, Don't jump in right away and try and help them. Wait for them to, again, recognize, hey, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, whomever, I'm having trouble with this. Can you help me? I don't remember how to do the multiplication. If it's something they've just learned, again, it's going back to that first time, give them that opportunity to struggle through it. And here's the hardest one, I think, for parents. If they're giving it their best effort, even if the answer is not correct, let them struggle through to the end, because it's far more productive for a student learning if you can go back and pinpoint the one spot where maybe their thinking went a little off in the wrong direction. But if they're giving their best effort, the other thing is for teachers, if we're in the classroom, right, we've taught something to our students and then we're releasing them for independent work time and we're going around and we're checking with them. So students are working on their own. And it's helpful for us, even if a child is submitting something with a wrong answer, it's helpful as a teacher because we're not right in front of them all the time. We can't walk up to them and look over their shoulder and see where their issue is. It's helpful for us to see what their wrong answer is or where their thinking is going, because that's giving us information that then we can go back to that student and help, go through the cycle of what they were doing and correct that issue. But if it gets returned and everything is correct, we don't know, did the child get it and like they're on it, they're ready for the next thing, or did it take a lot of support from a parent or a sibling or an adult to help them, which is okay, but that's an entirely different viewpoint. So even if your child's given his best effort, even if they got it wrong, you can let them move forward. You might want to discuss it with them, or you can let the teacher know, hey, this is what my child did. He was clearly struggling, but we wanted to see, we wanted you to see what he was doing. So keep that in mind, that struggle is okay, and they don't always have to have the right answer. And here are some ways to help. So again, we kind of went over this, but we really wanted to emphasize, ask them to tell you what they're working on. Because oftentimes as a student or your child is telling you what they're working on, you gain a better understanding of where they are in the understanding process and where they might need assistance. If they've given an answer, you can have them explain their answer and how they got it, because again, that's going to tell you where did their thinking go off a little bit. Maybe they forgot to go back and check for capitals, and so they can't figure out why their editing isn't done. Then also, if, for example, this is especially true, for example, in math, but it can be anything, help them work through one problem and then have them do the next one on their own. Because that way, if you can guide them through the thinking process of one, then they approach the next one on their own, and you can start to see what do they have and what do they still need help with. And they're making those connections in their brain, right? We know how we can get to the right answer, but we want them to make those connections themselves, because when they figure out that answer or when they put it together, that's where the magic is. And we want that magic to happen. And don't just give them the answer. And trust me, I know it's hard. Sometimes you've been working all day and you're on the fifth problem and you're like, it's just 35, keep going. Try not to do that. Try to let them think through the process and get to the answer. Now, if they're struggling, and this is particularly, again, true for older students, but even lower elementary school students can do this, encourage them to let the teacher know what they're struggling with. Particularly in this distance learning, environment, we as teachers we can't always be as in tune to when a child is struggling, because again, we're not able to see them and interact with them and hear their thinking and their conversations. But a student can ask a teacher, right? They can ask to talk to them or go in a breakout room and let them know, Mrs. Klima, I'm really having a hard time with understanding whatever it is. And then the teacher can directly help your student. For younger students, again, it may have to be that you as the parent is stepping in to say, hey, my child is really struggling with this. Could we get some extra help with this? So those are kind of some key things to think about. The big messages are productive struggle. Again, let your child try to make those connections and work through those problems themselves first, so that then they, again, can make that connection, and then they are just advancing their thinking forward. And again, helping them in a guiding way, not in a, here's how we get there, okay? So those are just some ways that you can help. I'm going to open it up to questions if we have any.
I was muted, way muted. We've had a couple, some mainly about just accessing Imagine Learning, and Debbie, you may or may not know this. It's a question from one of our parents, and I may have to go research it. It's more a question about Imagine literacy.
Mhm.
Is it common to have it take the child back to the login screen when they've finished a section? I I don't.
Yes. Well, I believe yes, and we can double check that. Typically, I don't use it this year, but
Yeah.
oftentimes what happens is Imagine Learning is set up so that you're primarily doing it for 20 minutes a day. So they consider it, if you do it 20 minutes, that's when you're gaining that, true amount of time of learning and making those connections. So oftentimes when you finish that 20 minutes, it will then consider you done and log you out. We might know Matt want to follow up because again, I'm not using it this year, so I don't know if any changes have been made now that it's being done in a distance learning format. I do know that some kids really love Imagine Learning and they like to be on it for longer, or with scheduling it might be longer. You can log back in and then continue on, but normally it would cut out at that 20 minutes or so, or when you finish the section, because it's kind of telling you, okay, you're done. Good job.
Okay. All right. Great. Yeah. So I'll double check that. But yeah, I couldn't remember. So thank you, Debbie. And we've had a couple other questions show up, but I've been able to answer those mainly about just, accessing Imagine Learning and some other things. There is, so I want to mention maybe one thing, and I see, I'm seeing a couple more questions here now. Okay, yeah, so awesome. So I have, so one is saying my seventh grader is saying she's bored in language arts, and mom's concerned she's not learning enough content. Should I contact her teacher? I'll let you take a stab at that first, Debbie.
Sure. I would definitely encourage a conversation with the teacher. Distance learning has been difficult for all of us. And so definitely, you can even, again, a seventh grader can encourage, we have flex time, which is typically office hours on 2 days. So the Tuesday and Friday is setting up a one-on-one meeting, or if you want to be there as well, just to let the teacher know, because it is hard to differentiate at the same level as we would when we were in person. But definitely have a conversation with the teacher, because they want to know where your student's at and how they feel. And they may say, okay, that's great. Now we can challenge you with something else. So I would definitely encourage a conversation with the teacher, because it is so much harder for us to do that individual check-in. So when we learn that, then we can directly help your students.
Yeah, and I go back to, again, what you brought up earlier, Debbie. The more you can involve your child in that conversation, the better. So and it, to whatever extent you can. I know that's hard sometimes to get them involved, but the more you can get them involved in the conversation with the teacher, the better, especially in seventh grade.
Yes.
So it looks like a couple more. Yeah. Okay. So this is a great question. I love this question. What if your child refuses to ask for help? They won't ask another student, scared to go to office hours. I know he's supposed to self-advocate, but how do I do that when they refuse? What are your thoughts on that one?
That's a very difficult one. I'm going to guess it's an older student. That's a tough one. And I do know that we run into that a lot. Like, I've held students back when I go to release them, and I have one-on-one breakout conversations with them and to find out what's going on. And they'll tell me, oh, well, I don't have this, or I don't have that. And I'm like, buddy, why didn't you tell me? So I would encourage, if they're not feeling comfortable directly going to the teacher or asking another student, that is a time when you can step in, if you have the freedom in your schedule to maybe attend the office hour time with your students. Oftentimes students feel more comfortable if a parent or another adult is there with them, to do that. If they're really say, no, I don't even want to do that, then I would definitely encourage you to contact the teacher, and you and the teacher can talk through maybe where are the areas of struggle and what are some ways that we can connect that student. Maybe if they don't want to ask a friend in the middle of class, because I know a lot of students don't want to do that. They don't even want to unmute. Then maybe find out, is there a friend that has the same teacher that maybe they could talk to when they're offline, when they're not in, the Zoom call. That's another thing to do. So to find a friend that, again, they don't have to ask in front of the class, because I know, especially at middle school, they don't like to do that. But I would definitely start with maybe you and the student attending with the teacher, or if they're not going to do that, at least you talking to the teacher to start that conversation. Because I have found that even though students don't want to be the one to ask for help, if a teacher knows there's an issue, they again can kind of do a one-on-one breakout room conversation. And I've found, at least in my case, that many students have been willing to tell me things, but I had to start the conversation. So if I know there's an issue, and I know that's true for most other teachers as well, then I can broach it with the student, and then they're often more willing to tell me because they didn't have to ask, I asked them, if that makes sense. So, and they can, if they're nervous, you could plan it out with them. Like, these are the 3 things you want to ask your teacher. They can write it down and have it in front of them. I encourage that for students that are feeling insecure about it. But again, if your student doesn't want to go to the office hour with you, then talk to the teacher and encourage, maybe the teacher can pull them off to the side and talk to them. Because I know it's hard.
Yeah, and the more you can just scaffold that, maybe they're willing to write
Yeah.
an email to the teacher instead or
Yes.
something. So anything like that. The next question is, can parents tell how long a student is spending on Imagine Learning?
Um, that is a good question. I don't know. I've only seen it from the teacher end because it came into Cambrian after my son and daughter were too old to be using it.
So
Um,
that one I actually have heard before.
okay. Oh, look at you.
Yeah, I've heard this one before. No, and that again is something Imagine Learning is aware of, and I think would like to address in terms of a parent portal for Imagine Learning. The good news is, if you are interested, you can request, your teacher does have access to reports like that, so your teacher could give you that information. So we got a couple more here, so I'm going to go through a little more quickly. So how can I check the Google? How can I check the Google Class to check his homework?
Great question.
Yeah. Okay.
I should have pulled a slide from my other one. So there's 2 different ways you can do that. Most teachers have enabled something called a guardian summary email. So you want to make sure that you're connected into your child's Google Classroom, and then they'll send the email to parents, and it will show what work is missing, when work is due, so you can kind of get a look at that and see what's going on. If for some reason you're not getting that, definitely you can ask your child's teachers about that. The other thing is, sit down with your student and have them log into Google Classroom, because Google Classroom will show you, what assignments are missing and what assignments are due. So you can certainly look at it with your child. In fact, I would definitely encourage it to be a conversation with them to find out, well, it says these are all missing, what's going on? So you can definitely look at it with them and have them tell you why they haven't turned those assignments in. So I would absolutely encourage you to ask about the guardian summary email. I know most of us have enabled it. And then the second one is, like I said, sit down with your child and have them go through it with you, because they'll have a Google Classroom for middle school. Every single class that they have. For upper elementary school, it will just be their one Google Classroom, and it will show them what they have due.
Okay, and then we've got a couple more. The next one, this one's an interesting one. I think I can at least help partially address it. So, enterprise students are FaceTiming each other during class and chatting with each other. I know it's not just my child, and so I can't watch her 100% of the time because I'm working, which totally understandable. How can we address this? So yeah, and FaceTiming, and there's other distractions out there in the digital world as well. So one of the things we've started to recommend, and if you're using a Cambrian device, you should have received a note from me a couple weeks ago. There are different options for restricting access for your child, if you have an internet service provider, a lot of times you can, and depending on what level you've purchased, you have access to parental controls that let you filter out different websites and restrict access to different websites and applications and things like that. Um, if you So that's one way you could go about it. The other way, and I'll type it in here, I think, is there's a, whoops, that's the wrong one. Here we go. Type. There's something we've started putting on devices that are borrowed from us, Chromebooks. That is, it's basically an extension to Chrome that filters out, allows a parent to set different settings to restrict access to content. And it's something we're looking at possibly extending. Right now, it's just the extension for Chrome. But it's called bloxy.net, and it is something you could download, and a really simple, easy solution you can download and put on your computer and then password protect. So it allows you as a parent to password protect it, and it's fairly adaptable. So you can put in different settings to restrict access to different types of content. So it is something we've looked at for our own Chromebooks, because our student device system was really structured to be used within our school network. So all of those devices leaving the network, they don't have the same level of protection. So we've been working on the same thing with respect to our devices. So I hope that helps a little bit. We could do another topic on that just alone, I think.
One comment I wanted to make on that is finding out when they're using it. Not that they should be using it during school time, but to know that typically in a class structure, they're for middle school, they're being taught for half the time, and then they're given individual work time. And so I would encourage, if they're using their FaceTime, hopefully not during the instructional time, that if it's after that, to encourage them to only do that if they finished all of their work. I mean, I do know, I can speak for my daughter. She has occasionally FaceTime during the independent work time because she's had a question. Now, I'm not going to say that their entire conversation was academic related. However, it has helped at times if they're working on something, because they're much more apt to talk to a friend than in a breakout room with someone else. But to encourage them that can only happen once their work has been completed.
Okay. Yep. Awesome. So, and then just moving on here, and I want to say one more thing, because I know folks may have to start leaving pretty soon. We'll go ahead and work our way through some more questions. But before you leave, if you are thinking about it, we are thinking what would be a nice another webinar, some other topics that parents would appreciate hearing about. And so if you have some suggestions, some areas that you would be interested in hearing more about, please do put those in our Q&A. Things that we have talked about include everything from supporting our English language learners better, so resources those students can use, looking more at the social emotional piece and how we can support our students in this environment from a social emotional perspective, to more technical and focused things like Google Classroom. I'm a parent, teach me how to use it. And we spend, 20 minutes going through Google Classroom and learning how to use it. So don't be shy. Your feedback really helps us focus where we want to go. So if you have some areas you'd really like to spend 20 minutes talking about, please do put them in the Q&A. So we'll continue on here with a couple more questions. Are there any apps or tools that can help students go from class to speech to resource to help them do this on their own on Zoom, and best tools or alerts that let them know when they are to attend various school meetings and sessions? And I'm going to say part of this answer depends on the age, but Debbie, what are your immediate thoughts on that one?
So I was going to say, especially for older students, Google Classroom is a great tool. And again, students can put their own things into Google Classroom, or they may have them put in there by their teacher. So I would definitely say, because you can, they can have their speech Zoom link. It can be a reoccurring appointment. So if they're going to speech every Monday at 9:30, they can have a calendar item that is speech 9:30. Here's the link, and it can be reoccurring each time. And it can set up to an alert to flash on their screen to tell them that they need to be there in 10 minutes to remind them. For younger students do have access to Google Classroom. I don't think they're using it as much, but they do all have a Google account that they can use Google Classroom. One suggestion is, because teachers can post within a student's seesaw, is if the Zoom link, because it should remain the same, you could request that that Zoom link is put into seesaw, and I believe teachers can now pin it on seesaw so it could stay right there. So that way, it's not going to help as much with the reminder aspect. Maybe they could set a timer or something like that, but at least to know, okay, this is my link and this is where I go. Because I know it is hard for kids, older and younger, to keep track of where am I now, where am I going, when do I need to go to my next spot. So using Google Calendar, or like I said, Seesaw, and even if that becomes too much, even if it's like a Google Doc that every day you open that tab for younger students for them, that just at least has those Zoom links there for them, they can click on them and then get to where they're going. Just that central location can also be an online central location. So whatever might work for them.
Okay. Another one, my eighth grader at Price has said his Gmail is down the last couple days. What should he do to troubleshoot? I just want to offer my first go-to on that one. I always log in as the student first and kind of confirm that it is down. Their Google accounts they are just Google accounts, so you can log in anywhere, and you should have access to his his account name and password. And then Debbie, I'll let you kind of go on from if you have other suggestions.
That would, yeah, definitely try and log in, make sure that somehow when it, because Google Chrome will save the password for you. Occasionally, if you accidentally mistyped and it did it, it might be saving it incorrectly. In general, that's not usually an issue because they're all, again, running through the district. But I would definitely have him log completely out on Gmail or Google and then go back in and just see if that's the issue. So exit out of the browser altogether and then try and re-log in. If you have a phone or other device, try it on your device and make sure that it's not, it may be device specific, but in general, it should be working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we use our staff, our teachers also use Gmail as well. So, and you can, again, you can let his teacher know. You can also file a tech help request if you really think it's not working, and we can go in and look at it from that end. And I'll post that link for the tech help request. I'll post a link for the the distance learning help page, which has all of those links on it for you at the end of this. So you have access. And then I see we have a couple requests. So thank you for that. What do you do if your child is clicking turned in with nothing attached so they get a 0? I'm checked to turn in. I'm not asking, just trying to put in an effort. Okay, on that previous question, if they turn it in with our attached work and don't correct in time and it's graded, it will no longer show up. And it's graded, it will no longer show up as missing work. I'm not sure if that's a question or not, but yeah. So I guess strategies really, if they're turning it in with nothing attached, that sounds like a go-to strategy for some of our kiddos.
Yes, I've seen students do that because I can always tell, like when I've updated PowerSchool with grades and there's missing things, or I can always tell like when a parent might have checked because suddenly a student has marked turn in for everything and they haven't actually attached any work. Occasionally it happens by mistake, right? I mean, how many of us have sent an email without the actual attachment on it, right? It happens. But if you're seeing that a lot, then that's probably that they're trying to clear their to-do list without actually doing the work. So typically a teacher will then comment if necessary and return it back, and it will show up as missing again. So what I tell my students is if you see an assignment and you had it turned in and it came back as missing, look for my comment and I'm going to tell you exactly what was not there or what the issue was so that you can resolve it and fix it. So my guess is they're either not realizing how to attach something, like there's a confusion there, or they're just trying to clear their to-dos, but not realizing that to clear the to-dos, you actually have to do what's on the to-do list. So encourage them to go back through and like talk about what the assignment was and what they were supposed to do and what didn't happen would be my suggestion.
Okay, and I see there's a parent here who's saying they have Booksy installed, but couldn't figure out the password. So I tell you what, if I could ask you just to email me separately on that, and then I could work with you to make sure. I did send out a screencast, but I don't know that it specifically went into setting the password. So send me a separate email. My name is Matt Hill, so Hill M at cambriansc.com, and we'll work it out from there with the password. Booksy, I believe there's a parent asking if it works on a PC. It's specific to the Chrome browser. So the best thing, if you can, for a home network is to try to use the parental controls that come with the router, or your cable modem, or if you have Comcast or whoever. That's the best way, because our kiddos are pretty smart when it comes to technology, and a lot of times they can find ways around things. So the putting it in the router or the cable modem really makes it harder for them to access and to work around.
They're
And if
very
you'd like, oh, go ahead, Debbie.
I
Sorry.
say they're very creative. You have
Yeah,
to at least give them credit.
they are. And so if you'd like a pointer to more information on how to get to the parental controls, just send me a separate email and I can forward you some information on that. And then it looks like we have, okay, thank you. I see some requests for some topics. Awesome. Okay, good. Oh, this is great. But can't get the camera and microphone to work in Google Meet. States it's blocked. When I use the feature to unblock, it doesn't take any suggestions. Okay, so yeah, so camera is blocked in Google Meet. So and is it a Google? So I guess I'd want to know if that's a school Chromebook or if that is a personal Chromebook. So I tell you what, to that parent, if you want to just shoot me a separate email, we can chat about that offline, in terms of the camera and the microphone not working. And then we have, okay, and then another suggestion for note taking, studying for a test. Okay, really appreciate these guys. Thank you. And a webinar with tips and using Google Classroom and Seesaw. Okay. So that looks like it's it for the questions. I just want to say, I'll give Debbie a chance to say goodbye here, but I just want to, first of all, thank Debbie Klima for putting this together and for us, and really appreciate that. I want to thank you, parents, for joining us. And again, go back to what Debbie said at the very beginning of this. You guys have always been our partners, and we are a team that, we work together to make your child successful. But more than ever, you are, we could not do this without you. You are such an important part of making this happen. And we know it's not easy. So, so hang in there. Thank you for joining us. And yes, thank you for all the fantastic ideas. Debbie, I'll give you the last word.
Awesome. Yes, I do want to echo that. Thank you very much. And I can speak for all the teachers that I've talked to, that we really do appreciate how much parents have had to step in and, like I said, take over that management role and making sure that your child is online and being the tech support for them, as well as your normal jobs that you have. So we really do appreciate it. And we really recognize how much work you're putting into this to help make sure that your child is successful. So thank you to all of you for doing that. And then Matt, do you want me to put up the slide from the other webinar with the website that they can go to?
Yeah, if you want, I posted the link, but if you want to go ahead and put that up for a minute, if you've got it handy, we can throw it up, and then we'll leave it up for a couple minutes, and when you're ready to go, please feel free to drop off. We'll go ahead and end the webinar in about 2 minutes, just so folks have a chance to, if they want to copy down or take a screenshot of the information.
Yeah, let me just go to that particular page right here. Almost. It's loading slowly but surely. Okay, here we go. Let me share this screen again. Okay. So this has, you can use the QR code if you want to take a picture of it on your phone, or if you want to just go to that link. And like Matt said, that literally is kind of like the everywhere for every online distance learning resource. It explains the apps, it has links to them, it has tutorials for various troubleshooting issues, and a great troubleshooting guide. So highly recommend you bookmark this and look here if you're having a tech issue or a distance learning question. Chances are it might already be there.